Okay, let's be real. Every year, a flood of new games drops, and let's face it, some absolute bangers slip through the cracks. You ever randomly discover a game and think, wait, why is nobody talking about this? Well, today we're fixing that. I'm Buds, and we've got 10 underrated recent games that deserved way more attention. Hidden gems that flew under the radar but are 100% worth your time. If you love discovering fresh, overlooked titles, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a must-play recommendation. Right, let's get into it. Let's kick this off with 1000X Resist, a game that does something most titles are too afraid to try. It messes with your head in the best way possible. This isn't just some run-of-the-mill sci-fi adventure, it's a full-blown narrative trip that throws you into a world where reality is fragile, memories are unreliable, and the truth? Well, that depends on who's telling it. The game is set in a dystopian future where a mysterious plague wiped out humanity, leaving behind a single survivor. Except that survivor is actually a clone, and she's been worshipped like a god. You play as one of her many clones exploring a surreal, fragmented world where secrets lurk in every shadow. And I mean secrets. The kind of twists that make you put down your controller for a second just to process what the hell just happened. Visually, it's got this stylized, dreamlike aesthetic, almost like a painting that's been glitched out. It's hauntingly beautiful but also kind of unsettling, which fits perfectly with the game's themes of control, identity, and rebellion. If you're into control, Signalis, or anything that makes you question your own existence, you're in for a wild ride. Now, I get it. This isn't your standard action-packed blockbuster, and that's probably why it flew under the radar. But honestly, that's a shame, because this game is dripping with atmosphere, and the story is one of the most thought-provoking ones I've seen in a while. It's mysterious, it's eerie, and it's absolutely worth your time. So, if you're ready to unravel a mind-bending sci-fi mystery that'll keep you guessing till the very end, 1000X Resist is waiting. You can grab it now on PC and Nintendo Switch. Alright, let's talk about No More Room in Hell 2. The first thing that stands out to me, it's not just another zombie shooter. This is survival horror cranked up to maximum stress levels. Unlike your typical Left 4 Dead style run-and-gun zombie apocalypse, this game leans way harder into realism and tension. Ammo, scarce. Communication, essential. Death, inevitable. The first game had a solid cult following, but this sequel takes things even further. The devs are doubling down on the grim, desperate survival aspect, and honestly, I love that. The atmosphere is dripping with dread, lighting is minimal, environments feel unsettlingly real, and the zombies, they're not just cannon fodder, they are threats. Even a single walker can ruin your whole night if you're not careful. What makes it stand out is its focus on cooperation. This isn't a game where you can just solo your way through. You need your teammates. Every decision matters. Do you waste a bullet to save a friend? Or do you conserve ammo for the next encounter? Do you risk making noise to scavenge for supplies knowing it could attract a horde? That level of tension is rare in modern multiplayer games, and it's what gives No More Room in Hell 2 such a distinct edge. The only reason this game isn't topping more lists is that it launched in early access, meaning it's still getting polished. But honestly, that's part of what makes it exciting. If you're into survival horror that doesn't hold your hand, this is one to keep an eye on. The game is currently available on PC with console versions likely in the future. Let's talk about Pacific Drive because this game is something else. It's a survival game, yeah, but not in the way you might expect. Instead of scavenging for food and chopping trees, you're fixing up your beat-up station wagon and braving a surreal, supernatural, storm-infested wasteland. It's weird, it's eerie, and it's totally unlike anything else out there. The first thing that stands out, the atmosphere. You're driving through this constantly shifting world, dodging anomalies, lightning strikes, and who knows what else while trying to keep your car from falling apart. And your car, it's basically your lifeline. You upgrade it, fix it, and most importantly, rely on it to get through some seriously tense situations. Think Death Stranding, but instead of walking across a bleak world, you're flooring it through one. The mix of exploration and survival is where Pacific Drive really shines. It's got that roguelite structure where each trip out into the storm feels unpredictable, and every piece of scrap you find could mean the difference between making it back to base or being stranded in some reality-bending nightmare. It's got a bit of STALKER energy to it. Not in gunplay, but in that whole you're never safe feeling. Now the big question, why didn't this game blow up? Honestly, it's hard to say. Maybe it's because it's not your typical survival horror or open world adventure, so it kind of sits in between genres. Maybe people just didn't get what it was trying to do, but for those who did take it for a spin, they found something special, something fresh. If you like immersive, tension-filled experiences where every trip could be your last, Pacific Drive is a game you need to check out. It's currently available on PC and PlayStation 5. Let's talk about INDIKA, a game that is anything but ordinary. Right from the get-go, this one doesn't play by the usual gaming rules. It throws you into a world that feels like a twisted fever dream, a blend of deep, existential themes, dark humor, and outright weirdness. And yet, somehow, it works. This is a third-person adventure that follows a young nun named INDIKA, who, let's just say, isn't your typical nun. She's got a little devil tagging along, literally. That's right, she's haunted, or maybe guided, by a horned, sarcastic figure who constantly challenges her beliefs. And honestly, this dynamic is one of the most engaging parts of the game. It's not just some random sidekick, it's a reflection of her internal struggle, making every moment feel like you're stepping into a mind that's at war with itself. The setting? Gloomy, oppressive, and absolutely dripping with atmosphere. INDIKA isn't just trying to be artsy for the sake of it, it actually has something to say. The game takes a bold swing at religious and philosophical themes, and while that might make some players uncomfortable, it also gives it a unique identity. If you're tired of the same cookie-cutter stories in gaming, this one is a breath of fresh and slightly unsettling air. Gameplay-wise, it's a mix of slow-burn storytelling, exploration, and puzzles that keep you engaged without overwhelming you. Think Inside meets Disco Elysium, but with a Russian folklore twist. And speaking of twists, this game isn't afraid to throw some wild moments at you. It plays with your expectations in a way that few games dare to. The only reason this game didn't get more attention? Probably because it doesn't fit into any neat little genre box. It's weird, it's heavy, and it's not afraid to make you think. But if you're up for something that challenges the norm, INDIKA is absolutely worth your time. It's currently available on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. If you want a gaming experience that sticks with you long after you finish, this is one you don't want to miss. Let's talk about Dordogne. This one isn't about high-speed chases or brutal combat. It's about nostalgia, memories, and emotion, all wrapped up in one of the most stunning watercolor art styles you'll ever see in a game. Right away, the first thing that stands out is its aesthetic. Seriously, it looks like a moving painting, with each frame feeling like it was lovingly crafted by an artist who wants you to slow down and soak in every detail. But Dordogne isn't just pretty to look at. It's got heart. You play as Mimi, a woman revisiting her late grandmother's home, triggering a flood of childhood memories. The game constantly shifts between past and present, letting you experience Mimi's story as both a child and an adult. This dual perspective adds a layer of depth that makes it feel more personal. It's not just about reminiscing, it's about rediscovering parts of yourself that may have been forgotten. The gameplay is light and exploratory. Expect puzzles, diary entries, and small but meaningful interactions with the world around you. It's more about soaking in the experience rather than chasing high scores or completing objectives. And that's what makes Dordogne special. It's peaceful, meditative, and completely different from the bombastic AAA games we usually see dominating the charts. Now I get it, this isn't going to be for everyone. If you're looking for adrenaline-pumping action, this isn't it. But if you're in the mood for something heartfelt, relaxing, and just straight up beautiful, Dordogne deserves your attention. It's available on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch, so there's no excuse not to check it out. Let's talk about Tchia, a game that absolutely deserves more love. At first glance, you might think it's just another charming indie adventure, but there's a lot more going on under the hood. This is an open-world sandbox game inspired by New Caledonia, and you can feel the passion the devs poured into every detail. Right away, the art style catches your eye, bright, colorful, and full of life. It has that warm storybook feel, but don't mistake it for a simple kids game. Tchia gives you freedom. You can climb, glide, swim, and even take control of animals and objects using its unique soul-jumping mechanic. Ever wanted to be a fish? A bird? A freaking coconut? You can do all that and more. That ability alone makes exploration feel fresh and exciting. Instead of just running from point A to point B, you're constantly experimenting with how you move through the world. And the music? It's fantastic. You get to play a fully interactive ukulele that isn't just for show, it's used for puzzles, summoning abilities, and even jamming out to some local tunes. But here's the thing, despite all of this, Tchia kind of slipped through the cracks. Maybe it's because it doesn't have the combat-heavy mechanics that mainstream audiences crave, or maybe it's because bigger releases stole the spotlight. Either way, this game has a soul, and it's one of those rare experiences that actually makes you feel good while playing. So if you're looking for an open-world adventure that values creativity over combat, Tchia is one to check out. You can play it right now on PC, PlayStation, and even the PlayStation Plus Extra. Let's talk about Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. First off, if you've never played the original, don't worry. This game throws you right into the action with a power fantasy that's hard to ignore. You play as a Lieutenant Titus, an ultramarine decked out in iconic armor, and well, you're basically a walking tank. But not just any tank, a tank with a chainsword. Now what makes Space Marine 2 interesting is how it ditches the slow, cover-based shooting of modern third-person shooters in favor of aggressive, in-your-face combat. This isn't Gears of War, where you're ducking behind a wall and waiting for your health to regenerate. Here, the best defense is a relentless offense. You heal by smashing through enemies, which means every fight pushes you forward instead of keeping you pinned down. Visually, it's got that grimdark, industrial sci-fi look that Warhammer fans love, but even if you're not deep into the lore, it's still a spectacle. The environments are massive, the enemy hordes are overwhelming, and the sense of scale, insane. When you're mowing down waves of Tyranids with a bolter the size of a small car, you feel unstoppable. That said, it's weird that this game hasn't been hyped up more. Maybe because it's releasing in a crowded year, or maybe because Warhammer still has that niche tag. But if you're into intense, weighty combat with a bit of strategy thrown in, Space Marine 2 might surprise you. It's available on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series XS. So if you're craving a game that makes you feel like a superhuman warrior built for destruction, this one's worth a shot. Let's dive straight into Nine Sols, a game that might have flown under the radar for many, but is absolutely deserving of some serious love. First things first, the game's premise is incredible. Imagine if Hollow Knight and Dark Souls had a baby, but that baby went through a deep dive into Taoist mythology. Sounds pretty wild, right? Well, that's exactly what Nine Sols offers, and it does so in a way that'll have you hooked from the very first swing of your blade. The game's art style is what really pulls you in. It's visually stunning, with a hand-drawn aesthetic that feels like you're playing through a mythological storybook come to life. The world feels rich, filled with ancient temples, beautiful landscapes, and dark corners where danger lurks. But what really stands out is the combat. Nine Sols is all about precision. Each swing of your sword has weight, every dodge feels earned, and the bosses? Well, let's just say they're not for the faint of heart. The challenge is real, but that's what keeps you coming back. You'll die a lot, but each death feels like a lesson, not just a setback. And let's talk about the story. It's not just a kill all the things type of game. There's a deeper narrative at play, one that taps into themes of reincarnation, fate, and sacrifice. As you journey through the world, you start unraveling the ancient lore of the Nine Sols, these corrupted deities that are holding the world in their grip. The twists in the story are clever, and there's this eerie, mystical vibe that makes you feel like you're on a sacred mission. The best part? Nine Sols doesn't get lost in unnecessary filler. Every moment, every fight, every environment contributes to the overarching narrative. It's a game that knows exactly what it's about and isn't afraid to take you on a journey full of highs and lows. However, despite all this brilliance, it didn't get the attention it truly deserved. Maybe it's because the art style is a bit niche, or maybe it's because people just missed it amidst the big, high AA releases. But that's exactly why it's an underrated gem. If you're a fan of tough but fair combat, a beautifully crafted world, and a story that keeps you invested until the very end, Nine Sols is a must-play. It's a game that does its own thing, and it does it incredibly well. Don't let this one slip by. It deserves your attention. You can grab it now on PC, and it's absolutely worth the dive. Let's talk about Ghostrunner 2 because damn, this game doesn't mess around. If you've played the original, you know what I'm talking about. Fast, brutal, and with that ninja vibe that makes you feel like an action movie star. Now the sequel takes all that, adds more polish, and cranks everything up to an insane level. The first thing that grabs you is the setting. We're still in that cyberpunk dystopia, but it feels even more alive this time. Neon lights, towering skyscrapers, and a city that's as hostile as it is breathtaking. The game takes verticality to new heights, literally. You're wall running, dodging, and slicing enemies midair, all while trying to stay alive in a world that wants to see you fail. The environment is built for speed, and every level is designed to make you feel like you're on a mission. Like you have a purpose, but that purpose is mostly survive. What makes Ghostrunner 2 stand out is how smooth the combat feels. The fluidity of the movement is next level, and it keeps you in the zone. You'll be chaining wall runs and sword slashes together like it's second nature, all while dealing with enemies that want you dead in an instant. If you screw up, well, it's back to the beginning, and trust me, you will screw up. A lot. But that's part of the fun. The satisfaction of getting through a level with perfect timing feels like a victory you earned. The story? It's not groundbreaking, but it does its job. It's about revenge and survival, which feels a little familiar, but it works here. You're a cybernetic ninja taking on all kinds of enemies in your quest for justice. And while the plot's not deep, it's enough to keep you hooked between the insane gameplay moments. Now here's the kicker. Ghostrunner 2 kind of flew under the radar. It came out during a packed time in gaming, and people were focused on the big titles. But honestly, this game deserves more attention. If you love fast-paced, high-skill gameplay that tests your reflexes and makes you feel like an unstoppable force, Ghostrunner 2 is a hidden gem. Available now on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. If you're into intense action, you won't want to miss it. Let's wrap things up with Lords of the Fallen, and let me tell you, this game is an underrated treasure in the action RPG genre that deserves more eyes on it. Now, the first thing that jumps out to me is that it's got a whole new take on the Souls-like formula that's taken the industry by storm. It's a bit of a reboot, but not in the same tired way we've seen other franchises do it. Instead, it's pushing its own identity while still pulling inspiration from the big names like Dark Souls and Bloodborne. The combat in Lords of the Fallen is brutal, and that's exactly what you want in a game like this. It's challenging, but it doesn't feel unfair. Every swing of the sword has weight to it, and timing is everything, which is the perfect recipe for an intense battle. One of the standout features? The dual world mechanic. You're literally swapping between two different realms as you play, kind of like Dark Souls meets Dishonored. And yes, this leads to a ton of mind-bending puzzles and moments where you're not just fighting enemies, but also the environment itself. Visually, the game looks phenomenal. The environments are hauntingly beautiful, and the design of the monsters and bosses is pure nightmare fuel in the best way possible. Seriously, some of these enemies are so detailed and terrifying that they could give you nightmares for weeks. Now, I'll be honest, I think it's a game that slipped under the radar for a lot of players. It didn't get the spotlight it deserved, mostly overshadowed by bigger releases at the time. But for those who did dive in, it's become an instant favorite. If you love tough-as-nails combat, rich lore, and unique world building, this is definitely one to sink your teeth into. The Lords of the Fallen could be the hidden gem of 2024, and if you haven't given it a try yet, now's the time. This game is available on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series XS. Alright, that wraps up our list of 10 underrated recent games that deserved way more attention. Seriously, it's crazy how some absolute gems slip under the radar while everyone's busy talking about the same 5 Topodobaway releases. But that's what we're here for, to dig up those hidden treasures and make sure you don't miss out. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you played any of these games? Or is there an underrated banger that deserved to be on this list? Drop your picks in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on the best gaming lists. Until next time, keep exploring, keep gaming, and most importantly, don't sleep on these underrated gems. See you in the next one.